Okay, we are live. So, Akil, without further ado, go ahead and start us off. Mr. Taylor, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, Akil, go ahead and start us off.
Good afternoon to all of our viewers, all of our board, all of our staff. My name is Akil Taraga, Jalen Pettis, and Lokesh Joshi, and we present to you Virtual Town Hall Episode 3. Thank you guys so much for your previous support on the last two episodes, and it could not have been possible without you guys. And we're looking forward to making this episode a blast, just like the last two. And yeah, without further ado, let's introduce ourselves. So my name is Akil Taraga. I'm the co-founder of Unity and Diversity and the current president of Unity and Diversity.
My name is Lokesh Joshi. I'm the co-founder of Unity and Diversity, and I'm also the senior member of Unity and Diversity.
My name is Jalen Pettis. I'm the vice president of Unity and Diversity and the communications head, which means I contact all the people that we bring on.
And today we have the Democratic candidate for running for sheriff, Mr. Keybo Taylor. And this episode is going to be good. So let's get it.
All right, well, I guess just to start things off, Mr. Taylor, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, some of your background, your history?
Sure. As you say, my name is Keybo Taylor, and I'm running to be your next sheriff of Gwinnett County. A little bit about me personally. I grew up in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Was born and raised here in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Went to Central Gwinnett High School, graduated, started with the Gwinnett County Police Department back in 1983. It's been quite a few years ago. And when I retired from the Gwinnett County Police Department after 26 years of service, I retired as a major, which at that time was the highest ranking African-American in the history of that department, or the history of that agency. During my time with the police department, I worked in both uniform and the criminal investigation section. My time was pretty well much equally split between the two. I also hold a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from the Mercer University. And I also have my master's degree in public administration from the Columbus State University. I'm a Georgia Command College graduate, class number 10. I'm a DEA Unit Commanders Academy graduate. I have over 3,000 hours of training. I've also achieved the highest level of post certification as far as management, and I'm also a post instructor. A little bit more about me outside of my policing. I've also worked in the Gwinnett County school systems. I've worked there as a substitute teacher. I coached high school football at two different schools. I coached over at Collinsville High School, and I also coached over at Central Gwinnett High School. I've been involved in mentorship programs and things such as that, dealing with youth, coaching youth sports. And I've also worked in the mental health field also. So that's just a little bit about me. Then I'm sure we'll get into a lot of questions about, my candidacy and why I'm running for sheriff.
Absolutely. Well, since you already said it the second, let's get to that question. Why are you running for sheriff of Gwinnett County?
That's a very interesting question. I can't tell you any one reason why. I can just tell you that there's been an accumulation of circumstances that have brought me to this point. I retired, and after I retired, started to see some things, man. Actually, I got on social media, and I think I became what they call a Facebook bully on there. And I was listening to a lot of, opinions and comments that was made by folks in the business that I had worked with. And I knew that those opinions and comments shouldn't be reflective of someone in law enforcement, especially when you are tasked to protect and serve everybody, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of, a lot of your political affiliations. We should not be bringing our biases to the forefront the way that they were. So I started to see a lot of things happening across this country. You had the Trayvon Martin shooting, and you had the incident that was out there in Ferguson. So I become a little bit more involved, got back more involved in what was going on with Gwinnett County here. And I started having meetings and discussions with the current chief at that time, Butch Ayers was his name, and the lady who is the county commissioner at this time. She's the outgoing commissioner, Charlotte Nash. And we started to talk about what would it be, or what would Gwinnett County look like if we had an incident like Ferguson or something like that were to actually happen here in Gwinnett County. And so in 2016, I organized a rally here in Gwinnett County where I brought in local civic leaders. I brought the community together. I brought religious leaders together, and we had a rally up at the courthouse where we could get to, just to know and understand each other as people and understand our roles in the community a little bit better. And so we had a little bit of success with that. But then still, I still didn't have any inclinations to be out here running for sheriff. But as time moves on, that's where I am. Felt like right now is the right time for a change in leadership. I know that I am the right leader to move this agency here in Gwinnett County, especially in light of what's going on with some. I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button here. Sorry about that.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, so from what I can tell, and from what I can obviously, I think we can all can say that you are a very community involved personality, and I love that. And I've watched another podcast about you. You've been coaching football since what, 1979, and that.
You know what? We kind of get that mixed up. I found a plaque at my house the other day that said 1978. So I've been telling people 79. I may be cheating myself out of a year.
Hey, that's all the better.
It's safe to say that you've been in the county for a long time.
Very much.
It's good to say that you've seen it develop.
Oh yeah.
You've seen everything move, and
Seen
I guess you've been here since. I mean, you've seen demographics change, you've seen leadership change, and I think that makes you uniquely qualified, as you know a lot about the county. You've been here for pretty much ever. From what it sounded like, as you described to me, when you wanted to, or why you wanted to run for sheriff, excuse me, it sounded like you wanted reform, you wanted change. So let me ask this question: what will you do better than the previous sheriff, Butch Conway?
Very good question. When we talk about reform, really we need to start making sure that we understand and we're breaking reform down into two different categories. The new buzz is criminal justice reform, but we also, which encompasses more than just police reform. What I will do is I will reform that department. And I've already outlined several steps as to what I want to do. The first thing that we need to do is differently than what you have now is bring in a command staff that is diverse, and diverse as far as race, diverse as far as gender, and to make sure that the people that at the head of the organization is reflective of the people here in Gwinnett County, the citizens itself. And that's one thing that you don't have there now. Another couple of good key buzzwords that you hear everybody talk about is diversity and inclusion. Well, one thing that I experienced coming up with the police department was when I got promoted, then everybody started to talk about, oh, we're now diverse, but there was still no inclusion. I did not really have a real voice at the table. So even though I was at the table, I didn't have a voice at the table. So if we can have people sitting at the table, if you don't give them a voice, then that's still not representation or representative of the people that you're serving out here. So that's what we want to change. And how we do that is bringing in a diverse staff, and then we have to train them. make sure that they're, receive competency training, cultural competency training, diversity training. Then the rest of the staff on down has to have training in the areas of cultural competency, also de-escalation, and making sure that we're focusing in on mental health. So when you look at some of the issues that you have over there at the Sheriff's Department now, these are some things that we, would be looking to address from the start.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And branching off of mental health. So personally, I have conducted a research project that basically ties in brain physiology, overall brain health, and criminal behavior. And there was a positive correlation, of course, without any undermining factors. And I adhere to the possibility of reforming inmates through brain rehabilitation programs, which brings me to my next question. What is your approach to the mental health care facilities in the county jail?
Okay. When you look at the number of inmates inside of the Gwinnett County Jail, and I think it fluctuates between maybe about 2,000 and about 2,600 a day, probably anywhere from 80 to 85% of the inmates that is in jail on a daily basis have some sort of a mental illness diagnosis, whether it's been diagnosed or whether it's gone undiagnosed. That's evidence when you see some of the incidents that goes on over there, especially when you look at right now, they're up to about 75, 80 lawsuits over there for excessive force and wrongful death. A lot of times those people that are involved in those incidents, they're having some sort of a mental crisis. And that's the reason why they're bringing those rapid response teams in there, and then you're getting the results that you get. What we have to do is we have to have a better system in place to look at people, man, before they actually come into the jail, or if we can put some systems in place to deal with people with mental disabilities before they even come to jail. What I'm proposing is this. I want to have specially trained deputies, and I will have specially trained deputies out there, trained in the area of identifying people that are going through mental crises. If we run across someone out there that is having a mental crisis, rather than that person going to jail, we may need to look at putting that person maybe in a crisis stabilization unit and getting them stable. Outpatient services, making sure that they're set up with parenting skills, life skills, job skills, whatever it takes to help get that person back on track. We can develop programs between law enforcement, the courts, prosecutors, and even, businesses out here, the private sector, public sector, and make sure that, in with that and with doing that, that we have a system set up that if these people complete a program, that they don't have that criminal charge on their record. And we can give them that opportunity, without that stigma, to go back out here and become a productive citizen. And that's what it's all about is that we don't want to have repeat offenders coming in and out of the jail. And so if we can come up with some programs, beforehand, before they even come in there, that would be just as effective.
So it's safe to say that you would like to focus efforts more towards rehabilitation.
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to sort of backtrack just a little bit. In what you were saying, you talked briefly about excessive force. I just wanted to ask, what differentiates necessary force from excessive force?
Sure. The courts have already said that you can use force to effect arrest. But what they say is that you only use the force necessary, which means that whatever force that I use, I can't use any more. I don't have to use any less, but I can't use any more force than it would take to actually place that person in custody. Now, when we talk about that, we talk about different levels. As a police officer or as a law enforcement officer, if I put my hands on you to place the handcuffs on you, the courts have said that is an issue of force, okay? As unintrusive as that level may be, that is still a level of force. If that person resists, then you can use force to effect that arrest, but you can't go beyond that level of force. Now, what we start to run into problems is that when we start to use more force than what is necessary for the arrest. And that's what becomes problematic. And now those are the things that you see out here, you know, in some of these incidences here. And then it becomes the question of, is it even necessary to use force? And do you have the right to even use force in those incidents? So that right there is it all in a nutshell. And of course, you know, there's continuums out here that talks about the level of force and what you can do and where that level belongs. But the key to it is, as far as giving and providing good law enforcement services, is the fact that you only use what's necessary and not excessive.
All right, okay, you can go ahead.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Taylor. I just want to go, you talked about resources, mental health resources especially. So I'm sure you've been in the system for quite some time. You're aware of the Gwinnett County Mental Health Court, correct?
Yes.
You're also aware of how the National Alliance of Mental Illness works with our county jail to provide help to the inmates there who may need it.
Mhm.
So could you further help us understand better how you would reform the jail in terms of mental illness, like especially for like bringing mental health to our inmates compared to what they're offered right now? Of course,
Sure.
there's quite some resources that Butch Conway, along with the court systems, have come up with in order to offer inmates. I think it was under 24 hours they would have a referral. I think it was under 24 hours they would get a referral rate. They have 24 hours accessibility to mental health counselors. Could you please help us understand how could you better reform that? I mean, you already have the resources available there. How could you better improve them?
Sure. You know, first thing that I'm going to have to do is we're going to have to do a comprehensive review of what they already have in place to see what is working and what is not working. After that, then I'm going to have to make a decision. Okay. And that decision will be, do we provide mental health services in-house through the county, or do I continue to use an outside vendor?
Well,
And
so to my understanding, what I was understood was that this was all within the county, right? This is all offered through the Gwinnett County Mental Health Court. Now that's our understanding, of course.
No, what we're talking about as far as being remanded through the court system is something totally different. Okay. I can't answer for how they remand or what services that they have from the court systems. That comes from the mental health judge. Okay. What I'm talking about is having a better review and a better understanding of the mental illnesses and some of the things that we're dealing with as it pertains to the jail with the sheriff's department. Okay. So again, what we're talking about is what services or what are we doing to help identify people that are in crisis from the start? So I go back to what I was saying is that I will have to make a decision. You know, how do we get best services here? Do we get best services by hiring our own mental health staff to make sure, you know, that these people are being properly serviced, whether it's through evaluations, initial evaluations, medications, you know, any type of treatment that these people may need or should be receiving, you know, at the behest of the county. And of course, you know, we want to do that in conjunction with the courts, okay? But you have to understand that the people that are in the jail, they have not been sentenced. These are people waiting. So whatever the court system decide, that's something totally different. You know, or do I use an outside vendor? And one thing that I've been leaning to, one thing that I do know that I will do is I will hire an outside consultant to help me, you know, figure out which way is the best way to go with that. And how do we provide these best services? And then we need to have some companies in place, excuse me, to help us monitor and make sure, you know, that we're in compliance with what these people, the services that, you know, that they contract with us, to make sure that we're getting those services for the inmates.
So as sheriff, would you quit working with the National Alliance on mental health, mental illness, and completely branch away from them and create your own division? Or once again, will that be after consultation with others?
Yeah, no, I will not commit to breaking away from them because, like I said before, when we go in, we're going to have to do a comprehensive review to see what's working and what's not working. And like I said before, you know, it may be where we stay with what they have. It may be where we change and tweak a couple of things. It may be where we bring in our own people, or it may be where we contract with someone else like that service. So, I mean, I can't answer that now because, you know, we're going to have to go in and do a review. And I'm going to have to defer to people, man, that are, you know, experts in this field, you know, that knows this better than me. But we'll make a good decision, and we'll make sure, you know, that we put that, and the inmates' health is going to be at the forefront of what we're looking to try to get done.
So I know during your campaign trail, you have emphasized that you want to create something called the Behavioral Health Acute Crisis Intervention Unit, the ACIU. And so how would that also work? How would that exactly be implemented with what NAMI is already doing in our jails and in our court system? And how would you tie that into the ACIU?
That would be something totally different. What I'm looking to propose is go back and what I said before. A lot of things that I'm looking to do is create these partnerships outside of my department in with deputies inside my department. So in other words, we want to create units that can respond on calls with police departments out here. And what we're doing is that we're taking, you know, now the organization that you're talking about, they mainly deal with situations once a person has actually been incarcerated. What I'm doing is I'm putting more emphasis and focus on how do we identify, provide services for someone without incarcerating those people from the beginning.
So basically the purpose of ACIU would be more to go out into the field itself. So work with like field operations and like go to people's houses, or how would the ACIU work?
No, the ACLU would not be, that's not their focus. Now I've seen what they've done in other areas, like in Atlanta. What they've done is that they've paired up mental health people to ride on the EMS trucks, okay? And if they have mental health calls, then they'll respond to those calls, and they'll have someone right there on the spot that could help evaluate that person. Now, I'm not opposed to that. As a matter of fact, I would love to see that happen here in Gwinnett County, you know, but that will probably be step 2 after we get step 1 implemented. But I know that is a program that works. It's very successful. I know that they've had some success with it in the city of Atlanta, especially, you know, diverting and getting people to where they need to be. So if you got someone out there that has the credentials to sign a 1013 on someone, you know, that person doesn't take a trip to jail. That person takes a trip to, you know, whether it be Georgia Regional or, you know, whatever other, you know, facility that they would designate for them to go to.
Okay. So I'm still not able to understand. So the ACIU would work with our EMS, or would it be like a totally separate department that would be?
That is totally separate. Okay.
Okay.
That's separate. That is not something that we would be working with right off of the rip with the sheriff's department. Okay. They provide guidelines, but they're not, I don't think that they're the company, man, that is contracted to provide mental services for Gwinnett County Sheriff's Department.
Okay.
So I just want to ask, I'm going to keep at the topic of mental health, but this time, rather than focusing on inmates, I'm going to move into the department now. We know that there have been issues with officers who have mental issues. I mean, I know you guys see some of everything out there when you guys go out into the field. So would you implement any programs in the Gwinnett County Sheriff's Department that would focus on officers' mental health and mental safety or anything like that?
Yes, I will. There's a couple of programs that they already have in place. Whereas one program that they have is that if an officer is exhibiting certain types of behavior or has been involved in certain type of incidents, then we can, we can offer them services, or we can mandate that they go get services, depending upon what it is that they do. What I would also like to see, and I will take a look at, is regular mental health evaluations. Maybe it'd be every, once a year, maybe not once a year, maybe every 2 years, but we definitely need to have something with more teeth involved, dealing with officers. And that runs parallel and hand in hand when we have to also have systems in place that when we identify that, an officer is a bad apple, if there's smoke around this guy, we know that there's fire somewhere. So we have to have systems in place to not only evaluate their mental ability to continue to do the job, but should they, or are they suited to do the job in other areas too? So those are some things that we're all looking at. Yes.
So you said something about officers as bad apples, so to speak. So we know that there is a culture in police departments, sheriff departments of they're very tight. You guys form very tight bonds because you're putting your life in someone else's hands. But sometimes bad things happen. Officers might do some bad things. And some of what has been said is when some officers try to report bad behavior, they see fierce retaliation. So would you be implementing any programs that would make it easier for officers to report bad behavior? Because obviously, before we can go with widespread police reform, we have to focus within the department. We have to focus within the people, every single person that's working in the department. So would there be any program that you would be supporting or advocating for that would allow officers to report bad behavior easier?
One of the problems that you have when we talk about reporting the bad behavior is that when you're looking at mid-level management, 9 times out of 10, they may be someone that is condoning that behavior. The people on the streets regularly recognize and understand, hey, this person should not be out here, working. And when they take it up the level of the chain of command and nothing is done about it, then that is a morale killer. Okay. What I'm saying is this: what we have to do is we have to start from the top down. Okay, you can't start from the bottom up. We have to start from the top down. So what we have to do is like I said, when we go in, the members of my command staff, they ain't but one voice, and that's gonna be my voice. Okay, and it's gonna be one mission. So that mission, that voice will trickle down to middle management. Okay, so that will create a culture is what we're trying to change. We're changing the culture. We're trying to, create an area of comfort so that if an officer do come in and report one of his coworkers and saying, hey, this is what's going on, that there's an avenue that we can take a fair look at what's going on with this guy. And again, with regular checks and balances put in place, constant check on, taking a look at, regularly reviewing their use of force, their use of force incidents, any other complaints that comes in on them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be use of force, but it could just be, attitude complaints is what I call them. Okay. And again, those are indicators, and it might not be the indicator to say that this officer is going to do A, B, C, but at least it gives you a place to start to look. But I think in order to change that culture, it won't start from the bottom down. It has to start from the top. From the bottom up. It has to start from the top down.
Okay, I'm just gonna sorry, Akil. Just like one more question.
Yeah.
Let you go.
You got it.
Okay, sorry. I just want to stick within the department. So we obviously are entrusting everyone's lives in the hands of sheriff's departments and police officers. So obviously we want the right people to be on the job. We want everyone to be stable and have the right mentality to do the job. So I'd want to ask you a question about the Gwinnett County Sheriff Office's hiring standards. Do you believe that the hiring standards as they are in place now are acceptable? Do you think that something should be strengthened to make it easier or harder to allow someone to become a Gwinnett County Sheriff?
Absolutely not. The hiring standards right now, that is something, man, that has to change. Okay. But why do we change, and what are we looking to try to change in it? All of y'all are old enough to know, and you've heard this before, you get what you pay for. Okay. So if you're not offering good benefit packages, good salaries, good working conditions, the best training for, folks to come in and make your department attractive, then what happens is you get what's left over. Okay. That means you get, after some of the other departments that pay the best, have the best benefit packages, the best officers, and if they're selecting officers, using a good criteria to select them, they're going to go to those departments, and then we're going to get what's left over. And I think right now, and I could be right or wrong on it, but I believe that there's somewhere between 100 and 174 openings here, maybe between the police department and the sheriff's department right now. Those are vacant positions right now that are not full. So what happens is that when the public start to demand, hey, you know what? Our crime numbers are going up. We don't see enough officers out here. We want more officers out here. Then what happens is that you start to change and lower your standards, and you bring in people that normally shouldn't be getting these jobs. And you definitely wouldn't want these people coming in here, working in what we would consider one of the best agencies in the Southeast. And we want to make it one of the best agencies in the nation. So, what we have to do is we're going to have to take a look at that package. And one thing that I'm asking for, I've been advocating for, is better packages, but I also want to see some living allowances, housing allowances for these officers, to give them some incentives to make sure that they're not living in Barrow County, Walton County, but they're actually out here living in the neighborhoods out here where they're working. And we bring those resources back inside of the department. But even though we have those vacancies and we need to look at creating that, changing that package to bring the best in, I'm not going to be that person that's going to be concerned about how low my numbers is. Once I realize or recognize that we got somebody that should not be in there, we're going to get that person up out of there. And we'll do the best we can with what we have until we can get this system online with, to where we should be one of the highest compensated agencies in this area.
Sir. Yeah, and you can do 99 good things, but one bad thing can basically destroy your reputation.
Sure.
And and like we've seen it before, we'll see it again. But coming to my point on the premise of mental health, does the degree of crime deter from the type of mental treatment an accused individual receives? Number one. And number two, are there potentially going to be any systemic / innate benefits that the police department will receive in the terms of mental treatment and all that accused criminals won't get?
No. When you look at the program that I've been talking about, that program, the model that I've got this from, it's a 2-year program, which means that if a person is accused of a felony, the way that it is set up now, that person wouldn't qualify to be in this program. So that means that person would have to have committed a felony to be under the court order or be remanded by the court system long enough to actually complete that program. So, naturally there will be some things that some people would do out here that, you can't put them into a program. And, there's certain crimes out here that you can't say, hey, I'm gonna put you in this program because, of your mental disability, and then you complete it, and, you can't do that. But, there are some criteria for some things that some people could do out here. More so in line like with property crimes or things such as that you could look at putting a person in that program.
Of course. And you made the distinction between a misdemeanor and a felony, but I'm just saying, what about the degree of felony, right? If somebody basically commits a horrible crime that is out of the realm of just, like when you think of a felony, there are different types of felonies, right?
Sure.
And if it was a mass murder, would you treat that person the same as you would treat a person who committed a generic felony?
I
In
would
the terms of
treat
mental.
that person. Yeah, I would treat that person the same, but that person would not get that same opportunity. In other words, that person, if he's in jail, 9 times out of 10, if it's a murder charge, he's not going to have a bond anyway, so he will be in the jail. Now if we need to provide some sort of services for that person, then we'll do that. Okay, within the within the restrictions of what we can and can't do for an inmate. Yes, we will, because the one thing we don't want is that we don't want incidences in there to where this person is unstable, and then we have other uses of force incidents that we have to deal with this person inside. Okay,
Yeah.
Either he gets hurt, he hurts one of my deputies, or anything such as that. So, yes, he would get whatever services that any other inmate is due, because of the charge. And remember now, a person that is in jail, they have not been convicted, they've been accused. So, we don't have any rights under any circumstances based upon any charges or any things or what they're charged with to deny these people any services.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I just wanted to kind of bring in something that's been a sentiment that has been felt by a lot of people, especially young people. I'm moving off of mental health, by the way. There has been an ongoing and growing movement to call for defunding the police. So I guess really a better way to say it is reallocating funds to community development and things of that nature. We know, according to your platform, that you are running on a fiscally responsible platform, right? So you're trying to pretty much save money, cut exorbitant costs, and cut things like that. How would that change if a so-called defund the police movement was successful and was successful in reallocating funds? And I'll ask you this as well: do you support that movement?
No, I do not support it in the terms or the label that is being used. I think anytime you say, "Hey, we're going to defund," that takes on a notation that that it leaves for so much other reallocations of funds. Before we even start talking about defunding, I've already been talking about reallocating funds. One example, the biggest example is the 287G program. Okay, and that program that's between $2 and $3 million a year. Okay, that the county spends to fund that program. All right, that's money right there that we can take that money, put that money somewhere else into education programs. Programs like the old DARE programs, the old advanced programs, where we're putting deputies back inside of the school system in a non-enforcement capacity. We're putting them in there in an educational capacity to where we're teaching kids at the age of 10 and 11 how to make better choices, and the consequences of the choices. Back in the day, the programs such as DARE, they talked about drug use, but today, these kids are faced with so much more. You still have the drug issues that's on hand. You have gun violence that's on hand. You have bullying that's on hand. Sexual assault, is more prevalent today than what it was back, 30 plus years ago. So there's a lot of things that we can do with that money other than 287G. Also, too, we need to, and like I said before, we also need to look at, and I'm asking for better benefit packages out here. So in order to get those benefit packages, I know I'm going to have to move some money around to some other areas to make sure, to see if we can get that and make that happen. But what we do need to do, that a lot of people, some folks touch on it, some people don't touch on it. But you remember at the very beginning, I talked about training, okay?
Yes.
And what training looked like. That is the beginning of there's, hiring and training you know, that's what sets the bar for your department. Okay, hiring the right people, making sure we train the right people, get them trained up the right way, and those are some things. So, you know, in terms of saying defunding, I say no. You know, got in trouble the other day because a guy gave me some pushback on it. And I said, no, I'm not going to go in there talking about cutting funds. I'm going in there talking about asking for more funds. And I said, we can agree on the reallocation of funds, but, you know, taking away anything, because, you know, if we're honest about it, you know, somebody else may come in and say, yes, I'm for it. You know, another candidate may tell you, yes, I'm for it, and I'll go ahead and I'll do it. But see, what he's not going to be honest with you and tell you is that there's no control. Once those funds are out of the sheriff's department or the police department, there's no control as to where that money goes. And then they start using that money for other things, man, inside of the government that's not mandated for it. And eventually the calls for services is going to put you back into the point to where, you know, 5, 6, 7 years from now, you're going to come back in and people are going to be asking for that money back. And, you know, I just believe in being honest and upfront about it.
So, Mr. Taylor, you brought up 287G. Now, that's a very large debated program in the Gwinnett County system, and a lot of people are for it, and some people are actually against it. Why do you feel like 287G is a failure?
It's a very discriminatory program, okay, and it treats people. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's a discriminatory program, okay? And it affects people of color differently than it does people of European descent, that both of them could be here in this country undocumented, okay? When you look at the individual officers out here, and you remember we went back and go back to what we talked about a little bit earlier, when we talk about the biases, okay, the bias and the prejudices that a person would have as an individual, okay, they'll use this as a tool to exasperate their biases, okay, and that's what you see that's happening out here. You know, is inappropriate, it's unappropriate. You know, it's what you look at the numbers out here, and nobody can sit down and tell you, because they refuse to do the data or pull the data or even track the data to show where the program is not a discriminatory program. When you see the practice of what you see with 287G today, this is exactly how they treated Blacks and African Americans, okay, in the 80s and the 90s, and some of the practices that they used of pulling people over, and I'll use the crudest of term of it, is pulling people over driving while Black, okay? They see a Black person, they trump up a reason to pull you over, and looking for things, man, you know, and not having the proper calls to pull you over, and still, you know, you're getting locked up, you know, unfairly. So
So,
I don't believe.
I apologize to, you know, budge in, but before we go on, I know what 287G is. I'm sure you might know what 287G is. A lot of our viewers are actually sending in questions asking what is 287G. So would you mind going ahead and explaining to the people who are watching right now, what exactly is 287G?
Sure. 287G is an agreement that is made between local law enforcement, local or state law enforcement, and ICE, okay, which is the agency that enforces people that are in the country here that's undocumented. And basically,
ICE is part of the Department of Homeland Security, correct? That they don't just handle legal immigrants; they also handle all types of immigrants, including airport security and all of that, correct?
Right, but this is the immigrations and customs part of it.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. But what I was saying on that is that you know, immigration laws are federal laws. Okay, these are not state, these are not local laws. So basically, what they've done is a way of creating more resources and having an avenue to check people coming into jails or arrest situations. That is the reason why these agencies enter into these agreements with ICE. And basically what happens is that, you know, if it shows that you're in this country and you're not here, you're not documented, what they'll do is that they'll put an ICE hold on you, an immigration hold on you, and using an ICE detainer or whatever other order that they would cut on it. That means that you're going to be detained inside of the jail until they make a decision on whether to release you or deport you. All right. So that's the $5 answer of what ICE is and what the 287 agreement is.
So how Gwinnett County runs it, at least this is to my knowledge, right? Of course, you being part of law enforcement, you might have different knowledge. 287G mainly focuses on felony crimes. It doesn't focus on misdemeanor traffic crimes, minor crimes like that. It's more focused on the felons, right? And I'm just gonna bring up some facts because I saw that you didn't drop any specific numbers of how they're necessarily discriminatory, right? So I'm just gonna say there was one arrest made on a certain individual. He had charges of incest, felony statutory rape, 2 counts of child molestation, and 2 counts of aggravated sexual battery. All right, there was another case where this person was arrested on 3 counts of child molestation and 2 counts of rape. And there's many cases like this where illegal immigrants are caught with severe felonies. I mean, obviously, if it's a child molestation case, if it's a rape case, I mean, you know, as a personal belief, you shouldn't be out there in the community. Right? I mean, you
Okay.
need rehabilitation.
Let me answer that. Okay, your facts are not correct. Okay, the majority of the cases here in Gwinnett County, the arrests are not felony arrests. Okay, they're being arrested for broken tail lights, driving with no driver's license. Now, what you just mentioned, when they first came in 09, when they first started to introduce the 287G program here in Gwinnett County, basically what they did was they used those facts that you just brought up. Hey, it's here to get rid of the rapists, the robbers, you know, the murderers, the whole 9 yards. Okay, so it was a good sale for Gwinnett County at that time. And when they brought that program in, that was the focus of that program. All right, but since then, what you now have is that, yes, you're still going to run across somebody out here that's a rapist. You're still going to run across child molesters out here. That's going to happen. But when you look at the numbers, you go back and look at what they're being arrested for, pull the numbers up. The last 2 years under Obama, the numbers was between 160 and 170 people a year that was arrested under ICE detainers here in Gwinnett County. The first 2 years under Trump, those numbers jumped up to about 560, okay? You don't have 560 rapists running through the Gwinnett County jail, okay? So the majority of these numbers, these people that are being incarcerated and detained in there, these are on misdemeanor charges. Now, the next thing that I push back on that is that dealing with ICE, dealing with 287G, doesn't make us any safer. And let me explain to you why. There are a lot of rapists out here that are here in this country legally. So, you know, just because we find 1 or 2 that we bring through that is here in the country illegally, okay, that's not going to, once we lock them up, that's not going to make us any less safe than it would be if we didn't have 287G. I worked out here and I worked cases out here before we had 287G. We had immigrations. It was just the Department of Immigrations. So when we ran across a person out here that, you know, that we found that was here in this country illegally, and they had committed some of those crimes that fit in what we talked about, we took it upon ourselves to make sure that we contacted immigrations and gave them the locations and the information on these people. And we got them deported up out of this country.
So do you have specific stats of exactly how many people, like I remember there were about 15,000 people that were deported from this country out of the hundreds of thousands of people that were detained under the 287G program. So obviously that's, did we lose you there, Mr. Taylor?
No, he's here.
Hold on a second. I'm back. I'm sorry.
All right. So obviously that's quite a difference. I believe that was about less than a 10% deportation number there. And so Gwinnett County especially, obviously we have a large, diverse community, right? I mean, we are known to be one of the most diverse communities in the country. And so 287G, you believe that it would bring negativity into our community. You believe that it does more harm than positive, right?
Absolutely.
So how would you deal with these so-called illegal immigrants that are accused of these felonies? I mean, these aren't some, like small type felonies. These are pretty severe felonies like child molestation and rape. How else would you deal with them? Obviously, first of all, they haven't come.
You would deal with them the same way we've always dealt with them. We put them in jail. Okay,
it's not. They have come into this jail. That's fine, right? But they're not even here documented. So like, if they don't have any documentation, how would you necessarily deal with them the legal way then?
They will have some sort of documentation or will have their physical body. Okay, so once they're in jail, they're in jail. And see, what you have to understand is that a person that is going in under those type of crimes, they're going to be in there probably under no bond anyway. So they're going to be in there under no bond. So you now have the attention of the prosecutors. You have the attention of the court systems on these people. So if they want to call these people, just like what we did before, and say, hey, I got Keybo Taylor here in jail and he's undocumented, then we can still use the same system that we had before 287G, report that to ICE and let ICE come get them. What I'm not going to do is to stay into this agreement to where any and everybody that comes through that jail, regardless of whatever the charges are, that they're ran through an ICE database and they can't prove that their legal status here, and then they're detained. Okay, so if I got a person that's in here on, they come in and he doesn't have a driver's license and they bring him into the jail and now, okay, he doesn't have a driver's license. Why doesn't he have a driver's license? Because he's not in the country legally. Okay. So am I going to take that person that's been out here, that's working, he's got kids out here in the school system. He's taking care of his family. Now, am I going to hold that person in jail because he's here in this country illegally till ICE make a decision on him? In the meantime, he probably loses his job. Okay. His family loses income because he's not out here working. His kids are scared to death because daddy is now in jail and they don't understand that, all because of a driver's license. No.
I think that's a serious issue with the 287G program. It seems to fail to humanize the people that there is actually targeting, going after. So it sounds like what you're advocating for is more of a humanization of the program. Am I correct in saying that?
That's correct.
So why not reform it instead of completely cutting off this agreement? I mean, like you talked about, this is supposed to be targeted towards felonies, correct? But what can you do in your power to basically, if you were to potentially reform it?
You can't reform it because, see, what you have to understand is that very few deputies make arrests out here and bring people into jail under 287G. The people that are bringing the folks into the jail are other law enforcement agencies, the police departments, whoever else out here, local police. These are the people that are bringing them in. So there's no way I can reform, and according to the agreements, you can't say, well, we're only gonna hold people and report them because of whatever. That's not how the agreement is. So, the only thing that you can do is that you have to exit out of the agreement.
So I guess what would in the interim be put in place until we can come up with better legislation to try and cover that? Because obviously we know that, I'll say this, a majority of people who are here as illegal immigrants are here to do exactly as you stated before. They're here to support their families. They came here to live a better life in this country than they had in the country that they had come from. But there is a small demographic of some of those people who come here and they do end up committing crimes. So I guess what would be implemented if you became sheriff to remedy that issue? What would you implement?
Well, like I said, I would have to go back and, first of all, my stance is and has always been, we're not going to get involved in federal law, okay? I don't have the jurisdiction to look to try to enforce. I'm gonna have to stop the video. I'll keep talking, but I gotta stop the video for a second.
Oh, no problem, no problem.
We're going over a little bit of time here. What I'm saying is this: I'm not going to get involved in. I'm sorry. I'm not going to get involved in trying to figure out what we need to do as far as federal prosecution. We just can't do that. We don't have the authority to do that. Can you give me 1 second, please? I'm sorry.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, of course.
I have another call that I'm supposed to be on, and I'm letting these people know that I'm not going to be on this call. So give me just 1 second here.
Absolutely.
Oh
No
yeah,
problem.
for sure.
I'm sorry about that, but I do have another call that that I'm letting them know that I'm running a little late for. I think when we talked about this, we said this was going to be about an hour.
Yep. So you know what? As a matter of fact, I guess we can get. I'm going to ask one more question. It's more of a broad campaign question.
Sure.
So I guess we know that you're going into a primary. The primary is on August 11th. So you're running against Curtis Clemens. So I just wanted to ask, what makes you more qualified to be the Democratic candidate for sheriff over Mr. Clemens? I mean, we know he does have experience in the sheriff's office, whereas you have experience in the police department. What makes you more qualified?
My community involvement, all of the things that I've done outside of law enforcement, it makes me a little bit more unique than him. Everything that he talks about is stuff that he's done as an administrator inside of the police department. I was boots on the ground, okay, and I supervised in the narcotics unit. I worked in the narcotics unit. So I was out there every day dealing with people and dealing with folks in situations to where, I could have been like some of these other officers and had a file full of complaints for excessive force. But if you go back in and you look at how I conducted business out there, that's not the case. I don't have that. I don't have anything in my file. So, in with that and with that being said, I think it's time for leadership out here right now to know how to deal with this particular climate that we're in. So it's going to take a leader out here to make sure that the department understands, that one voice that we're talking about. And, we're going to be looking at areas of de-escalations and making sure that we're trained and making sure that, we're treating people of different cultures, with the same respect that we would want to, our own culture being treated. I'm the person that can bring in outside businesses. When you go back and you look at the number of people that are endorsing me, I can work with the legislators. I can work with the local governments. I can work with the religious leaders out here. I can work with the business community out here. And in order to change the culture of this place, it's going to take somebody that knows and understands and can walk and work in all of those communities. My experience out here working with kids is unmatched. Okay, it's unmatched. And the two things that I feel like we really need to be putting a focus on at the end of the day is making sure the guys like you, people of color, okay, and everybody has the same opportunity and have that same level of confidence and safe feeling when you have an encounter out here with law enforcement. So I'm the person for that. I'm the leader that will bring that type of change to Gwinnett County, and I'm your best choice.
And just another quick question. So you brought up community involvement. You also endorse yourselves with you let churches, pastors, you contact them and then they endorse you. Perfect, right? Will you ever be open to working towards other places of worship or like coming and supporting them? Because you know, Gwinnett County as is very diverse, you know. And so would you ever be open to that?
Oh yes. You know, they have not come out publicly for me, but I have leaders in the Muslim community that we're looking at. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
And,
you know,
and
you can't say that you're going to be inclusive and then start trying to cut people out. I mean, that's not what you do. Yeah,
Exactly.
and sure.
Yeah, and you know, that's the beauty of community diversity of race, diversity of opinion, diversity of religion. It's a perfect place to start this club, you know. And people like you progressing diversity, we love it.
Thank
and yeah, anything to
Let me
add,
say
Jalen?
one more thing too.
Yeah.
I'm also going to put together a panel of, and I'm gonna call it young folks again. I know I shouldn't call y'all young folks, but we're also looking to bring in some bright young minds, wise minds, man, to come in. You know, millennials, Gen X's, and put you guys together, and and you will also act as an advisory panel to make sure that we're providing, the proper services for folks of your generation too.
We would be on.
Thank you for that.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, and so yeah, go ahead, Lokesh.
Mr. J, we're actually coming to an end with time. Obviously, you have to be somewhere, and I think we had told you about an hour in. We've actually hit perfect timing. Thank you so much for coming out today. I mean, on behalf of our board, Lauren Johnson, Reshma Akani, Josh Bayham, Jalen Pettis, Akil Taraga, and myself, we just want to extend you a big thank you for taking time out of your Sunday evening. I mean, you had other stuff to do, and you devoted about an hour of your time to us. That means a lot to us. That means a lot to our community, obviously, with the runoff coming up. We want to get to know all of our candidates, especially arising topics. And if anywhere in this debate it did get heated, I apologize. We all apologize.
We all
Sure, no problem. I love it. That's what we need.
And what we all stand for, we're very open-minded individuals. And so we always love to get to know other people's opinions. And like that's basically the whole point of these town halls, and to us to get to know you better because you represent us.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, I'm going to be your I'm going to represent you, whether we agree or whether we disagree. Okay. I'm going to be the sheriff for everybody here in Gwinnett County.
That's exactly what we want.
Huh?
That's exactly what we want.
Exactly what we need.
That's exactly what we need.
Exactly. That's right. Hopefully I got a couple of votes up out of this, but
oh yeah.
If I didn't, we'll keep working hard to make sure, we secure your confidence, and, we can do this again. I'm just running out of time right now.
You're fine.
You got
Thank you very much, Mr. Taylor, for coming on. We're going to let you go right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode.
Let me say one more thing too. You can find my information at Keybo 4 FOR Sheriff.com or Keybo 4 Sheriff on Facebook. I know that some of you guys have already researched me. Maybe your audience will also too. We're and I'm gonna use this moment right now. I'm looking for volunteers. Okay, I'm looking to get to know people. Bring like I say, bright young minds. I want to get to know you. I want to get to know you better. To see where you guys fit in with what we're doing. We'd love to have you guys come out and help volunteer with what we got going. If that's something that you want to do outside of your organization as individuals, we'd love to meet you, talk to you, and bring you guys on board. Okay?
You put community first, and that's what we love. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm starting to get texts saying thank you so much for bringing Mr. Keybo Taylor. I mean, a lot of people didn't know about the two Democrat candidates. This is a great opportunity for them to learn more about you and where you stand. Just a big thank you for coming out and taking this time to actually explain everything, and it was amazing. Everybody's loving it, and so
yeah. And we'll let you go back to your busy day. And
thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing day. Thank you.